welcome to Design Voices Elevated Season 2. Today we are with Vivienne Heyhoe. Hello, Vivienne.
Hello.
Where are we today?
We are at a dental practice that is empty. Yes.
We're using this space. We've been knowing each other for a while. Actually, Vivienne and I worked together many years ago. How long ago?
Oh, I would say 2019.
Like 5, 6
Yeah,
years.
2019.
And a lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
So you were at JP Morgan back then.
Yes.
Now you're no longer.
Yes.
But before we go there, why don't you tell us a bit about your story?
So I am a medical doctor by training. So my career, 20 years 10 years as a medical doctor, and then the latter 10 years, so a 20-something year career, combination of healthcare, design, innovation, entrepreneurship, and now finance and investing.
Wow.
So I guess as a summary, I would say I'm a healthcare entrepreneur and investor by design.
How did you move from all of these different positions?
Very good question. So do you know what's really interesting? I think they're very, very closely connected. And I often, when we were at JP Morgan, I often used to tell people that finance and healthcare are very, very close to each other. But unless you've worked in both industries, it's very, very difficult to see the parallels. So I worked in medicine as an anaesthetist, so as a doctor. And I basically had an epiphany, is the way to describe it. Whilst I was in medicine, I was very much interested in design. I did furniture design courses, I did interior design, I did photography. And a friend tells me that I used to carry around design magazines when I was at medical school. I didn't know this, but that's what they said. And so I basically, like I said, had an epiphany. And I realised when I took some time out, I had a medical condition which I recovered from, but I took some time out and I just had a reflective period in my life. And it was really, what do I want to do with my life? Right, I want to impact as many people as I can over the course of my lifetime. Is medicine the vehicle to do that? Yes, but over the course of my lifetime, I could potentially see 1,000 people or 2,000 people, or I could think about doing something else. And I still remember where I was when I saw the work of the Design Council, actually. They had done an amazing piece of work with Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital, where they looked at reducing violence and aggression in the accident and emergency department. And I just loved that they used design, and it completely shifted my thinking as design as, furniture design into design for problem solving and impact. And so then I applied to the Royal College of Art and said I wanted to, what is this design where you can make a difference in the world? And then they let me onto the service design course, which I'm very grateful for. That's it.
Nice. And what was people's reaction around you? Because it's not an obvious shift. Also, just, simply going back to school after, becoming a doctor in itself requires many years of studies, right?
Yeah. I guess I'm very much driven by learning new things. It gives me energy. And so it wasn't a hard decision to make. I went into medicine with an open mind. And actually, before I went into medicine, in my year out, I worked at Coutts Bank, commercial bank, before I went into medicine. So I'm very much, wherever life takes you, as long as the golden thread for me is about purpose and impact. And so I don't really mind where I ended up. And I think people's reactions were quite interesting because they hadn't joined the dots.
Exactly.
Like, how do you go from healthcare? And I still get that today. And I have to sort of explain to people that for me, it's about impact. And as long as I feel like I'm making a difference in the world, I could be doing anything.
How do you define impact?
Gosh, lots of ways. Making people's lives better. I think that's it. But on a big scale, right? It's macro and it's micro. So it's on an individual scale. I try, but sometimes I fail. Interactions for me important, just to be able to treat humans as humans. And maybe it's a medical thing because you realise once you open a person, everybody's the same on the inside, right? Under the skin, they're all the same. But it's also on the macro scale. It's societies. It's global change. It's there's the macro and then there's the micro. It's influencing and designing things that could potentially impact climate change or hit healthcare systems, which is what I'm into at the moment, or financial systems. There's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about what you're doing now?
Yes.
That's the reason why I reached out, because I found it incredibly interesting.
Interesting. Yes. So where shall I start? So we left JP Morgan, and whilst I was at JP Morgan, I did this quest for learning. I did quite a lot around investing and understanding financial markets and understanding. So even though I was working in technology as operations and design, I was pushing myself in other aspects and just trying to understand the business side of it, because I found that as a service designer, that was one of the things that I lacked to some degree, and so.
Well, all service design lack it.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to that anyway. Yeah. And so, and actually, that was part of my reason for going into the financial services industry, because I was like, right, I really need to understand this because this impacts everything that we do. So investing, I did some investment certificates whilst I was there. And then I ended up doing an apprenticeship in venture capital. And so that's been the journey that I've moved into. So I founded a company with some partners where we introduced myself as a healthcare entrepreneur and investor. So I guess my services are B2B. So I work with other healthcare entrepreneurs and businesses that are looking to scale. So they have an idea and they're growing a business that's going to impact healthcare. So that's my way of impacting healthcare. And we provide advisory services as well as capital to help them scale and grow their businesses.
How do you find those businesses?
Honestly, I'm part of a couple of communities, quite a few communities actually. The deal flow comes to us, or we go out and search just through events and communities. I've got a partner in California, so he's kind of looking globally, and then I'm part of probably about 3 or 4 angel syndicates, and we get a lot of deal flow through by community. It's really relationships and who you know. That helps.
How was the transition from JP Morgan to this? Because I can imagine it's just a very different setup, also in terms of security for yourself. A lot of people struggle to make that shift because they feel that they're leaving the security behind, in a sense. And I don't know if you ever felt that, but how was that, moment of transition?
I think the pandemic shocked everybody. Right? That's the moment where you're like, actually, what am I doing? I've got to say, being in a corporate, I learnt so much, and my journey has gone from medicine to the Royal College of Art in design to going into digital creative agencies and innovation labs. So it wasn't so far from what I was doing. It's just that the innovation labs were inside a corporate or even the service design organization within the corporate, and then this is outside. So I guess it's the steam boat, the massive steam engine versus like a small agile organizations where you're able to make change faster. I think that's the difference. But just going back to your point about security, you've got to think about it really, because we've got a mortgage, we've got children. But for me, I hate regret, right? And not doing just because I'm scared. So I've always been one that's like, let's see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, you go, I've learned something, and I carry on. So that's kind of my attitude really. But it's it's not easy. It's not. It takes a lot of courage and bravery. But one thing that I have found is that if you're the first, you inspire others behind you, and they're like, oh, she's done it and she's not died, and say, well, I'll do it. So you inspire change.
That's why I'm interviewing you.
Yeah,
I want everyone to see this.
Yes, I'm definitely a change maker. Yes. So that's how I've approached life, really.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking, now that you're telling your story, as a doctor and then at JP Morgan, and now what you're doing right now, it's obvious that it brings together the skills that you have, developed over your career. It's obvious now, but I'm sure that when you are in it, going from one place to another, is not obvious at all. So how intentional were you in these transitions, like accumulating these different layers of knowledge and skills and exposure to things?
Even though I'm a very strategic thinker, in terms of my own life, I'm not very strategic. I think about my guiding light and the general direction I want to go in, and then I let life happen. I think everyone to some degree needs a North Star. Here are my values. Here's what guides me. And then you just see what opportunities come along, and then you decide whether you want to take them or not. One of the reasons I went to JP Morgan, like I mentioned, was really this desire to understand financial systems a bit better, because they drive so much of what we do. And even now with investing, I realise even more so, it's all very well and good having a great idea and designing something, but actually it's how are we pitching it, how are we funding it? There's so much more to it. But the reason my JP Morgan journey, like I fell into that because I heard a couple of talks online, one by a lady called Marianne Lake, who is a British woman. I just loved her values and how she spoke. And then Jamie Dimon, for what he stood for and how he wanted to change communities and societies, I really admired that. And so I thought that's a nice place to go and dig into finance a bit more. Yeah.
How do you think your object of design has changed across all of these different experiences and places? Like, what are you designing today?
So design for me is just back to what I said about problem solving and understanding society and people. Like, how do we create products and services that are going to make things better? And that projects from the Design Council, which I ended up going to work within the Design Council, completely changed things for me. But actually, even within medicine, I remember once, right, when I was a fairly young junior doctor, and I was working within anaesthetics and pain medicine, and I couldn't really figure out why so many patients post-operatively were in pain, right? And so I spoke to some of them, and I talked to them, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't really understand that you had to do X, Y, and Z before the operation and after the operation, and not to be in pain." And so then I decided, okay, well, it's simple. Here's what you have to do. You have to educate them, give information, blah, blah, blah. And so I remember going round, I worked in Cornwall at the time, going around the hospital and saying to the much senior doctors, look, we need to make a difference. We could just print some leaflets and we could tell them, because it would make such an impact. And their reaction at the time was like, oh, no, don't worry about it. So it's not that they didn't care. It's just that they hadn't realised how simple it would be to make these little changes that would make such an impact on people going through surgery. So I think even within healthcare, to some degree, however you define design, I was still thinking about design.
Yeah,
and then working for design agencies. So I worked for Publicis, Digitas, which is a design agency, and we were creating really interesting products and services. One's for cancer, so it was a healthcare, it was funded by AstraZeneca. And it was a digital healthcare innovation lab where we created products and services. So I guess to answer your question, it has shifted, but the main thing that the arc for me has always been about problem solving and solving society's problems. But I think what I've realised is that certainly within my practice, it's more about outcomes for me than it is necessarily about the frameworks. The frameworks are there to support the outcomes.
Yeah.
And the moment we get lost in the frameworks, we've kind of done ourselves a disservice, really. Yeah.
In this new journey that you're in, what is the one thing that you're most proud of that you managed to accomplish, or that you as a team managed to accomplish?
What is the one thing I'm the most proud of? I'm proud of lots of different things.
Okay, just tell me three.
Three. I am proud of the people I've met along the journey and the things that I've learnt. How I've managed to keep a focus on outcomes and impact, but still using design, right? Just the thinking about the end user and the end-to-end journey, and all of the things that I learned at the Royal College of Art, right? It's a mindset, really. It's really, really a mindset, and it doesn't matter where I go, whether it's at JP Morgan, whether it's what I'm doing now, working with different healthcare scale-ups. It's very much about who are you serving, right? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Yes, it's about the balance sheet, it's about profit and loss, it's about revenue generation, but actually who are you serving and why are we doing what we're doing? It's not just about the bottom line, it's actually about people. Yeah.
Do you find that type of mindset in the people that you're working with right now, like all of these different startups, or is it something that you try and bring to the table?
For some people get it, but some people don't. And I think it just depends on what your background has been. So if you've come into the startup world with more consulting or marketing, then I think your attitude often is more selling. That's what I find. If you come into it through technology, then it's more about the supply side of whatever you're building, right? Less about the people and the demand side. So it really does depend on their background. But I mean, people talk about design, but I'm not sure they fully understand what it means. So to some people, it means, oh, let's think about the system, right? To some people, it means, oh, let's think about the UX. To some people, it means aesthetics. To some people, it means objects. And so it's really varied depending on who you're speaking to. But one of the things that I'm always trying to come across, when people are pitching me, it's always about, so what's the problem you're solving? Is that the right problem? Have you tested it? What's the solution? Is that the right solution? Have you tested? How are you testing it as you go along? Are people, responding to it? So the frameworks around design are really, really important, even if they don't realise they're doing it. A lot of people are doing it.
Do you have any design founders?
Do I have any design? No.
How come?
Do you know what's really interesting? I've thought about this a lot. I don't know if it's because they don't think they can.
I think that's the right answer.
Do you think that's the right answer? Do you know? And it's quite frustrating because they're there, but they're often in UX. They're not even service designers. They're not often in the products. It would be great to see them in like chief product officer roles, right, or that kind of chief strategy officer roles. But I haven't really seen many. But I've seen them involved in the UX. Yeah.
They are working for startups. They're just not founding them.
Yeah, they're not founding them, and they're often not taking very senior kind of leadership type positions. The ones I've seen, but I don't know if it's because some of them are really early, some of the startups are really early, and then by the time they've scaled up, they've got technology in place, they've got the people that they need, and they're not often designers because what they're looking at the scale up stage is more about the numbers and the revenue.
I don't know, I have this theory that is a lot due to the way to design education, basically, where that focuses a lot on the actual practice. So executing the thing, being good at the process.
Yes.
But not really having a vision and push it through as your own, understanding of a better world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I think those skills and knowledge and mindset, it serves very well the
Yeah.
role of founder.
Yes. I would agree. I think for me, where I've been most frustrated with design is when it hasn't felt like I could own the thing. So for me, it's like I'll put my heart and soul into thinking about people and thinking, and if for me the execution of that vision is really important, and seeing it through and how it's delivered and how people are using it. And so maybe, like you said, within design education, that's not always the case. Like you are maybe there to think about a particular touch point as opposed to think about everything. Or even if you think about everything, perhaps the mindset is, well, I've thought about everything, but I'm going to pass it on to you. And so it's somebody else's problem to think about, but they can never really execute in the same way as whoever, thought about the service or the system in the first place. And then there's I'm going to keep coming back to the finance and the business. Actually, this place that we're sitting in, my sister's dental practice, I had to stabilize it after she sadly passed away. And what it's really taught me is service and business are really, really closely connected. Yeah. So a business like this, you've got dental services or whatever, and you've got to think about really the end-to-end journey for the people, the processes, the digital tools you're using. Super important. But then you've also got to think about the bottom line, right? Yeah. How is what we're making helping us improve the service that we are delivering to customers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's leadership to you?
Oh, I could talk about leadership all day long, Marcia, I really could. But to me, it's about there are different types of leadership. You could have peer leadership where you're on the same level and you're influencing. And then there's the leadership, which is typical, how everybody thinks about leadership. For me, that's about having a vision and inspiring and influencing other people to deliver on that vision with you, right, in a collaborative fashion. But it's also about service. As a leader, I'm in service to my people. So I'm understanding you, I'm understanding what makes you tick, I'm making sure that you're okay, so that together we can deliver on X, Y, and Z. That's really what it means to me. It's about lots of things. It's about having the bravery and the courage to stand up for what you believe in, but to bring people along with you, because otherwise you're a complete loner.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't have people around you.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what it means to me, and I just think it's life changing, but it's really about thinking about who you bring along with you and just making sure they're okay too.
Do you have a role model for like a leader that you think, oh my God, yeah, that's the way to do it? That's a good example of leadership.
I don't have one person. I think I look at different people and then because we all have blind spots, right? Yeah. And then I think about, I really like that about a person. I really like that about a person.
I think that's healthy, actually.
Say again? Is that healthy?
Yeah, because you don't idolize, one person.
Yeah, because we've all got blind spots, much as some people might like to think they don't. I think women, and this is a generalisation, I don't really like generalisations, but women tend to be a lot more introspective and self-aware and thinking about all of their deficiencies, but we all, even the men, everyone, we all have blind spots. For example, and only because I posted about it, Gary Vaynerchuk. He is not in design. He's this big market. Have you heard of Gary V? No. Okay, big marketing guru. But the reason I like, he's got loads of, I'm sure he's got loads of faults, but the reason I like him is because he's so empathetic. And the way he's worth multi-million dollars, but the way he relates to people, like we're all the same level, and you're human, I'm a human, and empathetic. And so I admire that about him. I don't know about his business practices. So I often look at people who are several steps ahead of me and go, I really like that about you. How can I be more like that? Or how can I be more like that as opposed to a whole package?
How diverse are the people that are in the startups? Because my feeling is that the startup world still is very much male, white dominated. Is that true? I'm an outsider to the startups world, to be honest. So,
Um, it is true. Although I've kind of skewed towards trying to invest in female founders and being part of female groups. So I don't necessarily see. I try not to just look at kind of male founded, but there are a lot of male founded um, scale ups and startups, loads, and the same. Good schools. White. There's so many, and even the startups that are funded. Like in venture capital, there's like 2%. Go to women and 0.02% go to people of colour. So it's just massively skewed towards went to a really good school, went to Oxford, I'm a white man, it's very, very skewed. And I guess, all of the cliches about, you can only be what you can see, that's partly what I'm trying to do, is to say, okay, so we need a bit more diverse voices, because diversity is good, diversity of thought. Because you've got diverse upbringings, your thought processes are different, and so therefore it makes it really interesting, as opposed to groupthink. I think groupthink is it's safer and a lot more comfortable, but it doesn't always change the world. So yeah, in fact, it never changes the world. So yes, that's kind of it.
but how do you go about it? I'm really interested. How do you go about diversifying the startups and scale-ups that you work with? Like, how do you find? Because I'm sure there are women of color founders, but it's a minority. Therefore, how do you reach out? It's just network, or
it really is. So I'm when I go to events or conferences, you see some people, and it's organic. I guess it's not forced. I hope that over time it becomes more diverse, but I think it's just it's all game theory. I'm a lover of game theory, and you really just have to. I mean, you want to fight it, but before you fight it, you've got to understand it, and so you kind of have to accept that's the way it is. But tiny ripples make a difference. So even just the fact that I am in this space, and yes, it is healthcare, but I would even when I try and invest in women or people from underrepresented groups, even if the solution isn't something that I would support or invest in, I would always try and give feedback. I get messages all the time saying, "Oh, thank you for spending time with me to help me understand, refining the problem or the solution or how to raise investments." For me, that's what it is. It's just giving back, even if I'm not necessarily going to be investing in that particular startup. And it sort of helps me. I met someone the other day, and my thesis is very much around healthcare. And she just reached out because she was doing something that's fintech. She's a person of color. And I sort of said, well, I can't, because my mission is to revolutionise healthcare with entrepreneurs, I can't really work with a fintech. But here are the things that I would do if I were in your position, because, I understand finance because I've worked in that sphere. And, she wrote me an email afterwards saying, "Oh, thank you so much. I really valued that." But, for me, it's about seeking them out and just making sure you can help when you can. Yeah.
Can you explain to us what is angel investing? Because I'm not sure everyone would know, and I'm pretty sure I can learn something from that explanation.
Yeah. So remember I said I worked with a venture capital firm for all of last year. They're based in Los Angeles, and at the end of that, I became an angel investor. So all you're really doing is you are helping entrepreneurs just move their businesses to the next level. So someone comes along with an idea, they have to go and get some funds in order to build it. And what an angel investor does that is very different to the venture capital lists, the angel investor is providing their own money, in return for small amounts of equity, but they are giving so much more than just money. They're introducing you to their networks, they're spending time with you to understand, they're basically like an angel. And then once you have, so there are different kind of rounds. So there's pre-seed startups where they're just thinking about the idea and it's, you know, really exciting. Then you've got seed, then you've got Series A, B, C, and it's basically different stages to move you towards an exit or an IPO or an acquisition by another company. That's the sort of end of it. But an angel's right at the start of the journey, so very early stage.
And what's different with a VC? What does a VC do?
So a venture capitalist, really, what they do is they go around with a pot. I'm trying to be really basic, and then they and they ask limited partners for money, and then they just have a fund, really. And some venture capitalists are generalists, or you can have like the one that I was working with in LA. Or you can have specific themes. So there's another one, for example, there's a healthcare specific venture capitalist called Heal Capital that's based in Berlin. And what they do is they find startups that they want to invest in, and then they give them some money to help them build their product. That's really what it is. So that's the difference. And then the venture capitalists get a return on the equity they took in the company once that startup or scale-up has exited. So once they've listed on the stock market or been acquired by another company.
And in your role as an angel investor, what do you look for?
I use my design hat, always design. So I'm looking at, I always start with the founder, right? Is this something they're really passionate about? Have they got a personal story? Because I think being an entrepreneur is really hard. So you've got to get, you know, really, really believe in what you're doing. And then I think about, say, the problem. What is the problem they're trying to solve and why? Then I think about the solution. Is the solution to the problem, is the solution fit for the problem? Because lots of people have problems, but the solutions don't always match it. And then also it's like, can they actually build it? And I think there are just so many unknowns with startups and businesses that the founding team, especially early on, is so important. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking at, really. And then you're looking at, what's the total addressable market? You know, you're looking at, you know, are they able to build the technology? Have they got the right amounts of people? So I generally use a scorecard to assess different opportunities that I look at. But it always starts with the people, right? When I speak to you, do I believe really that you have the grit and the guts to build that thing?
Do you think, I mean, I assume that there are not a lot of angel investors with a design background. What does that bring to you? I mean, having a design background in respect to another angel investor that does not have a design background, what's the difference?
Only going to think I had to ask. I sometimes see these things on LinkedIn and they're like, oh, you always have to start with the problem and then the solution. And then I think to myself, this is what we've been doing, right? I mean, like, so it comes really naturally, like it's almost like second nature. I don't have to think about it. It's so innate that I've been doing for over a decade that I don't have to think about it. Then it becomes, for me, more about the numbers because I've almost filtered that really quickly. So for other people that don't have the design background, I guess they're, you know, need to make sure the problem's right, need to make sure the solution's right.
Like
yeah, exactly. Whereas I sort of skip through those really quickly because I know really fast whether or not the problem. And then sometimes I ask, especially in healthcare, I feel sometimes I'm going to say I feel a bit sorry for the entrepreneurs because I understand healthcare so well that if they're bringing me a problem that isn't really a problem, and then I also have people to go and ask, then it's almost dead in the water because it's not as big of a problem. And one of the things we see in healthcare as well is healthcare. So you have a lot of impact-led people wanting to build, right? You're like, I want to change healthcare, I want to change climate change. But understanding, and this is where design comes into it, understanding the ecosystem of healthcare and understanding, like the NHS, for example, it's not just about patient outcomes, it's also about productivity. It's also about efficiency in operations. And so anyone who can demonstrate that they really get the healthcare system, that there's a tension between, yes, I want to make a difference for female healthcare and I want to change patient outcomes, versus actually there's this really old legacy type manual system with hundreds of thousands of people that work for it, and we can't always just innovate and chuck it in, as you know, from organisation. It's basically like organisational design on a massive scale. Yeah.
What does it mean then, revolutionizing healthcare? How do you do that?
Oh gosh, it's all these big words, right? I think one startup at a time, or one business at a time. So for me, it's just the way. So revolutionizing healthcare is saying, I define it in 3 ways really. It's starts with innovation, right? What we've talked about. So where are all the people who are doing amazing stuff within healthcare, who are either have a healthcare background themselves, surprisingly they're not enough, or they just, I've met so many people who've been like, I've been working in marketing and I just want to do something amazing for society, and so I'm going to start a healthcare company. So many of those who are just like, same as with climate change, I just want to make a difference. And so how do we connect those people with the healthcare professionals and the system, right? So it's really innovation, it's investing. So how do we help these startups, scale up businesses grow? And then it's really about impact and community. But so back to what I was saying, so it's like an arc. How do we connect them with healthcare professionals? There's so few healthcare professionals that are on LinkedIn, for example, or understand business, or understand entrepreneurship, because you leave medical school and you're straight into hospitals, and then people design things for you and try and give it to you. So it's really important that these two groups of people are connected and start to understand each other's ecosystem. And I think when you are when you're a healthcare professional, you're so in the detail and you see all the problems, it's very difficult to be innovative and to think design. And then the other way around is you're inspirational and idealist and you want to change the world, but actually you don't understand the system. And so actually, how do you bring these two groups of people together? Because they gain from each other. And also, it's very well known in the industry that it's very hard to make a difference in healthcare. Sometimes, one, it's because people don't often understand the system. And sometimes it's because they just are too embedded in the problems that they can't even see the light. And so just connecting them is already a game changer, I think. And so many healthcare professionals are leaving, right? Because it's tough. And, since the pandemic, they're losing funding, et cetera, But what if we could somehow have a halfway house where the healthcare professionals become champions of all of this exciting innovation in pockets that's happening? For me, that would be an amazing vision.
What's next in your journey?
So much going on, but what I'm really excited about, so Wellspring Global is the organisation that I founded, and I've got a partner who is based in LA, and together we are looking to, towards next year, start thinking about raising a mutual fund where we look at healthcare businesses, Main Street businesses, he calls them, in communities that are focused about healthcare, and just helping them scale, really, because I think people forget that a lot of healthcare community type businesses are pharmacies, they're general practitioners, family doctors, they're dentists. That's all, how do we start to look at the pre-primary and primary part of healthcare, as opposed to, you're really sick, you're in a hospital. There's so much community-based stuff that we can also be doing as individuals, which I call pre-primary, but also the primary care. I found out the other day, I posted on LinkedIn, a friend of mine is a family doctor, she's a general practitioner. She runs her own business, but nobody really taught you to run a business, right? She's providing a service for 5,000 people she's got on her rota. She has to think about the bottom line. She has to do the job. She has to at least break even. But nobody thinks about general practitioners as entrepreneurs. You don't. And,
Yeah.
you know, they're not taught. So she's a partner in this general practice, but I had, like, never been taught any kind of business at all. And that's really important to start thinking, how can we help these kind of community type businesses as well as the health tech sector.
What's the one thing that you see all of these different players struggling with?
Always comes back to people. Yeah. So people, you know, for example, you know, a startup, there's either one of you or two of you, and then you start to grow, and then you become a scale up, or a small business. You've got 20 people, or you've got 150 people. Yeah. And then suddenly what changes is the culture and, you know, the leadership, and then the team, and then people are leaving. It's quite, I think that cultures and team have so much friction in terms of running an organization that people underestimate the power of just really making sure the culture is right and the people are right. So I think that I would say the people and teams and leadership.
Above money, like numbers.
I think they will help you get to the money. Yeah, and like, you know, I always say it's who, not how. And it's back to leadership, right? If you understand your people, and if you as a leader can inspire them, the money will come in floods. Nice. It's really about the people. It's always about the people. Nice. And sometimes people aren't right for your organization, and then you help them find something else, and then you get someone else. But money's important, but I think people will be loyal to you if you look after them, and they will be in the trenches for you if you look after them. So I think always the people first. Yeah.
Okay, one last question. There is about the future. What's one hope for the future? And when I ask this question, it's usually about design and design community and the practice.
One hope for the future is that design is going through a really tough time at the moment. Yeah. Really tough. And I loved being at the Royal Coach of Art. Honestly, I always tell people, it's 2 of the best years of my life, right? I learned so much from the people around me, all of these really cool, really interesting people. But over the course, so it's 2012 to now, 2024, it's changed so much. There's more technology, rightly so, growth is happening. I think sometimes designers, that the purists are quite stuck in their ways, and I think that it's important for us to define and move and grow with the times. I think that because it's going through such a difficult time, that as a community we need to sit down and go, okay, so what's next for us? I think that's really important, because anyone can call themselves a designer without really understanding what design is these days. And then you've got AI and ChatGPT, there's so much going on. And so we individually and as a community, we kind of have to ask ourselves, what are we doing, right? How are we educating people what design really is? How are we contributing to impact and outcomes and building trust? And I think sometimes we forget about that. We go in on ourselves, and we really start to look at, about the purity of design, which isn't, don't get me wrong, it's important. But I went into design, it was more about impact and problem solving. So maybe that's what it is. Like, everyone needs to go, right, what does design mean to me as a community? What does it mean to us? And how do we start to tell people what it means?
Dr. Vivienne Heyhoe, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. I've been able to articulate all the random thoughts.
You're great.
Through my head.
Hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please share it with your network. Design Voices Elevated is a short video series aiming to provide a stage to underrepresented design leaders to inspire new reflections and conversations. My name is Marcia Arico. I'm a strategic design consultant, design leadership coach, public speaker, and author. If you would like to follow my work, please subscribe to designmavericks.substack.com. See you next time.